Hi, today's Torah study is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 1. Miketz Sheva Shanim talks about the sabbatical year, that any creditor would have to release his debt owed to him. However, from other nations that are not required to live by the Torah law, you can still go after your debt. You should listen to God, and by doing so, you will have the blessing of being able to be a lender to other nations, while you will not have to borrow from others. You will be able to rule over others, and others will not have to rule over you. However, if there are poor people among you, you should not withhold your hand from giving to them. You should open up your hand and give them for everything that they are in need. Torah continues that it's possible a person will feel in his heart that he would not want to lend because the sabbatical year is approaching. Torah says, do not make that calculation. Go ahead and do what's right, and God will bless you because you are doing what's the right thing, to open up your hand and giving to those that are in need. If a slave was sold to you, then the way it used to be was that by the sabbatical year, he used to go free. Torah says that when he does go free, be sure that you give him extra gifts. And if for whatever reason the slave feels that he had a good time by you and he wants to stay on, he may stay on as a slave as long as you pierce his ear by the door, and then he will leave by the Jubilee year. God also says that you need to remember that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and when you left, you also left with many gifts. The Tanya for today discusses the revelation of God that happens through the observance of mitzvahs and performance of Torah study, is something that is not on the same level for each and every person. Just like you look at a human being, there are the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Each one has its own energy that gives it the ability to function accordingly. Same thing is, every generation had certain missions, had certain things that they were supposed to accomplish. Within a generation itself, every person is supposed to accomplish something else. And the Talmud says that they asked rabbis what their fathers were mostly careful in certain mitzvahs. Not that they didn't observe all the mitzvahs, but that within the observing of mitzvahs, there are certain things that they were extra careful and extra cautious to make sure that they were doing it correctly and right. Why? Because that was something specifically that they were their kind of mission to be able to do in this world, and that's where the revelation of God was for them. Same thing is with us. When we feel that we have a struggle in a certain area, in a certain mitzvah, that might be that particular mitzvah that is the most effective of bringing the revelation of God in our lives, and we should for sure not ignore it, but rather exercise ourselves to make sure that we can fulfill what we are struggling with, that particular mitzvah. The mitzvah today, the Maimonides discusses the order of prayer. He also mentions the Kaddish, the Amidah. One important thing to note is that whenever someone does say the Kaddish or the repetition of Amidah or anything as holy as that, it has to be done with a minyan. One of the things we mentioned were that when a slave leaves, you will give him extra gifts. The Chinuch, he was one of the great scholars that put together all the mitzvahs of the Torah and explains them. He notes that even though today we do not function with slaves and get released by the sabbatical year, yet the concept of giving extra to someone who works for you, that concept is still a great concept that we should adapt. If someone works for you and he finishes his work, besides the payment arrangement that you have made in advance, you should always give extra. The Rabbi went ahead and explained and expand on this even more, that whenever you do something, you're teaching someone something, or you're giving someone something, you shouldn't just be the act of teaching, the act of giving, and then that's it. You should give within it extra teachings or extra quality of what you are giving, that the person himself will be able to grow from what you are giving and become a master in it. That's giving the extra, not just to give enough because you need to do the mitzvah of teaching someone or giving something to someone, but rather you are caring enough that within your giving, within your teaching, you are giving the tools that the person himself can become even greater than what you have just given to him. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.